Ava stood out from the very first glance. Her glossy brown skin shone brightly among the sea of pale faces in the classroom at Fairview Elementary. She often tied her hair into tiny braids adorned with colorful beads, red, yellow, green, that jingled with every step she took. Today she wore a black t-shirt emblazoned with a SpaceX rocket soaring into the sky. The words "to Mars" printed below in bold, striking font. On her left wrist, she sported a homemade bracelet crafted from electrical wire and blinking LED lights, a creation she'd pieced together from scraps her mother brought home from a secondhand store in Atlanta. Ava wasn't just the new black girl. She was a pint-sized scientist, a dreamer in a town that rarely bothered to look up at the stars. It was Tuesday, a special day at Fairview Elementary. Science Day. Mrs. Helen Carter, a middle-aged woman with curly, dyed blonde hair and thick round glasses, had announced the week prior that each student would stand up and share something about their family or their science-related dreams. "Tell us about your parents' jobs," she'd said, her voice flat as if reading a restaurant menu. "Or if you have a creative idea, feel free to share it." The class took place in a small room with bland beige walls, a few posters of the periodic table, and the solar system hanging crookedly behind the chalkboard. One by one, the students stood, their voices timid or hesitant, breaking the quiet air. "My dad fixes cars at Mr. Harris's garage," Tommy said, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. "My mom's a nurse at the clinic on Main Street," Sarah followed, her eyes darting away from the crowd. "My dad sells fertilizer at the farm supply store," Ryan added with a shrug, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. No one laughed, no one gasped. The stories were small, familiar, perfectly sized for Fairview. Then it was Ava's turn. She rose from her desk in the back corner, clutching a small cardboard box filled with things she'd spent all week preparing. Her white sneakers squeaked on the wooden floor as she walked to the front, her eyes blazing with pride. "My dad is Elon Musk," she declared, her voice clear and steady, ringing through the silent room. "He's the one who created Tesla and SpaceX. He's working on rockets to take people to Mars." The class fell dead silent for a moment. Not a cough, not a creak of a chair. Then, as if someone flipped a switch, the air buzzed with tiny sounds. A giggle erupted from the middle row, where Jake, a tow-headed boy with a smirking grin, whispered something to his friend. Skeptical glances swept over Ava, from her braided hair to her SpaceX t-shirt, then back to her beaming face, searching for a hint of a joke. In the back row of parents, a few adults frowned, exchanging puzzled looks. Ava didn't notice the shift in the room. She opened her cardboard box, pulling out a handwritten letter on SpaceX letterhead and a tiny rocket model she'd built from plastic and scrap metal. "This is a letter my dad sent me last week," she said, holding the paper high. "He wrote that he's testing a new engine for Starship in Texas, and this is a model I made based on his Falcon 9 rocket. I added LEDs to make it light up like the real thing." She pressed a small button on the model, and the LEDs flickered red, yellow, and green, mimicking the flames of a rocket engine. Ava smiled, her eyes twinkling like the stars she dreamed of reaching someday. But her joy didn't last long. Mrs. Carter raised a hand, palm out, signaling her to stop. Her smile was stiff, caught between skepticism and forced politeness. "Ava," she said slowly, her voice saccharine yet icy, "we're talking about reality today, not made-up stories. Elon Musk is a wonderful person to admire, but you can't say he's your dad." "But it's true," Ava shot back, her voice trembling but resolute. She thrust the letter higher. "He really is my dad. I can prove it." Mrs. Carter sighed, her gaze sweeping the room as if seeking agreement from the increasingly mocking faces. "Ava, I understand you really like Mr. Musk. He's a famous inventor, a wealthy white man, and you—" She paused, choosing her words carefully, then continued with a condescending tone. "You don't look like him, and your last name isn't Musk. Let's not confuse dreams with reality, okay?" Her words lit the fuse of ridicule in the classroom. The initial giggles exploded into open laughter. Jake leaned over to his friend, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. "She probably picked that letter out of the trash by the gas station." Another girl, Emily, chimed in with a taunting lilt. "Maybe her real dad works at the dump, and that's why she made this up." Ryan, the fertilizer boy, snorted, Black people always lie to seem important. Each word stabbed at Ava's pride. She spun around, eyes wide, tears welling up. That's not true, she shouted, her voice breaking. Elon Musk is my dad. I'm not lying. Why won't anyone believe me? But her outburst only fueled louder, sharper, crueler laughter, like needles piercing her skin. Ava, enough! Mrs. Carter's voice cut through, cold and sharp as a slap. Sit down now. This behavior is unacceptable. She crossed her arms, her stern gaze sweeping over Ava, as if she were a problem to be swept away. The room fell silent again, but it wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was heavy, suffocating, thick with shame and scorn. Ava stood frozen in the middle of the class, fists clenched, tears streaming down her cheeks. She felt the world against her, the probing stares, the whispers, the smirks. She'd never felt so small, so alone. As Ava shuffled back to her seat, her cheeks burning with humiliation, her heart pounding under the weight of every gaze, she hugged her cardboard box like it was her last lifeline. The classroom felt colder, as if even the walls had turned their backs on her. No one, not even Ava, knew that just weeks earlier, Principal Daniel Brooks had quietly arranged for a special guest for Science Day. That guest, by a strange twist of fate, had chosen today to arrive. Just as Mrs. Carter called the next student, the classroom door swung open with a soft creak. A tall, lanky man stepped in, wearing a simple black t-shirt, sunglasses, and carrying a small silver briefcase. Behind him was Principal Brooks, grinning ear to ear with barely contained excitement. Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Carter, Brooks said, his tone polite but firm. Our special guest for today arrived earlier than expected. Everyone, I'd like to introduce Mr. Elon Musk, inventor, entrepreneur, and founder of SpaceX. The classroom plunged into stunned silence. Not a breath, not a sound. Only wide eyes and gaping mouths. Mrs. Carter paled, clutching the edge of her desk for balance. Her gaze darted from the man at the door to Ava and back, the truth dawning like an approaching storm. Ava, from her corner, lifted her head. Her lips curved into a slow, certain smile. When her eyes met Elon's, she knew everything was about to change. The small classroom at Fairview Elementary seemed to shrink under Elon Musk's presence. He stood there tall and lean, his sharp eyes hidden behind sunglasses, the silver briefcase gleaming under the fluorescent lights. The students' whispers died out, replaced by a heavy stillness, as if everyone held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Mrs. Helen Carter, still gripping her desk, opened her mouth to speak, but only managed a hoarse, meaningless sound. Principal Daniel Brooks stepped forward, clapping his hands once with a resounding echo to grab attention. Everyone, let's give a warm round of applause for Mr. Musk, he said, his voice brimming with game show host enthusiasm. But no one clapped. The students sat frozen, eyes wide, while a few parents in the back murmured to each other, trying to make sense of the moment. Ava, from her corner, stood tall, still clutching her cardboard box. When her gaze met Elon's, he gave her a small, warm nod, a quiet promise that everything would be okay. Then he turned to the class, his voice low and clear, cutting through the thick air like a sharpened blade. Hello, everyone, Elon said, setting the briefcase down with a soft clack. I just flew in from California this morning. Nearly had to drive a Tesla from the airport myself because Ohio traffic is worse than I expected. He smirked, a dry signature hint of humor, but no one laughed along. I'm here for Science Day, and more importantly, I didn't want to miss the chance to stand with my daughter. Every head in the room swiveled toward Ava. She stood there, her eyes shining, the earlier tears dried, replaced by a spark of defiance. Elon walked over to her, resting a hand on her shoulder, then turned back to the crowd. I hear there's been a bit of a misunderstanding here, he continued, his tone calm but carrying an undeniable weight. So I thought I'd clear things up. Ava's right, I'm her dad. A small ooh escaped from the middle row where Jake sat. He leaned toward Emily, whispering, No way. But before he could say more, Elon opened the briefcase and pulled out a small frame photo. He held it up for the class to see. A picture of him, Ava, and a black man in an engineer's uniform, standing in front of a rocket model at a SpaceX facility. This is James Carter, Elon said, his voice dipping with rare emotion. My best friend, a brilliant aerospace engineer. James helped me design the Raptor engine for Starship, But 4 years ago, he died in an accident during an engine test in Texas. He risked his life to save the team from an explosion. Before he passed, James asked me to look after Ava, and I've kept that promise. The room sank into an even deeper silence. Mrs. Carter let go of the desk, her eyes widening behind her thick glasses as if she'd been slapped. Ava looked up at Elon, her lips trembling slightly, but she didn't cry. She gripped her box tighter, feeling as though a piece of her real father, James, was here, carried in Elon's words. Elon set the photo down and pulled out another item from the briefcase. A gold medal engraved with SpaceX Innovation Award and a miniature Starship model, far more refined than Ava's homemade version. Ava isn't just my daughter, he said, his voice rising with pride. She's part of the legacy James left behind. She's smart, creative, and unafraid to dream big. I'm here to make sure no one gets to snuff out that fire. His words sent a jolt through the classroom. A few students shifted in their seats, their skepticism giving way to curiosity. But then Ryan, the boy who'd mocked Ava earlier, raised his hand, his voice hesitant yet defiant. But you're white, and Ava's not. How can she be your daughter? Did you adopt her from somewhere? The air in the room tightened like a taut string. Mrs. Carter cleared her throat, about to intervene, but Elon raised a hand to stop her. He turned to Ryan, his gaze sharp but not angry. Good question, he said, stepping closer to the boy, each footfall a deliberate beat. Family isn't about skin color or paperwork. It's about promises, about who'll stand up for you when the world turns its back. I didn't adopt Ava from someplace like you're thinking. I chose her because she's the daughter of the brother who saved my life and dozens of others. Have you ever thought about standing up for someone? Or do you just sit there judging? Ryan looked down, his cheeks flushing red, unable to reply. Elon turned back to the class, his eyes sweeping over every face. I heard some of the things you said earlier, he said, his voice dropping, edged with a chill. Stuff like, she's lying, or worse, things about Ava's skin color. I was called crazy when I said I'd build reusable rockets, that I'd get humans to Mars. But I did it. Ava dreams big like me, like James, and she doesn't need anyone's permission to do it. What about you? Do you want to dream big or just sit here laughing at others? No one dared speak. Jake swallowed hard, Emily fidgeted with her fingers, and Mrs. Carter stood petrified, her lips pressed tight. Elon turned to her, his gaze unwavering. Mrs. Carter, I assume you teach these kids to ask questions and check facts, right? He asked, his tone light but cutting. Next time, maybe check before assuming a kid's making things up. Mrs. Carter stammered, her voice shaky. I'm sorry, Mr. Musk. I didn't know. But Elon just gave a curt nod, neither accepting nor dwelling on the apology. He turned back to Ava, smiling. Want to help me talk to the class? He asked. Ava nodded, stepping up beside him, her small shoulders straighter than ever. Elon opened a laptop from the briefcase, connecting it to the room's projector. The screen lit up with footage of a Starship test launch, white smoke billowing into the Texas sky. I'll tell you how we're getting humans into space, he said, his voice growing animated. But first, Ava's going to show you what she's done with her dreams. Ava set her homemade rocket model on the table, pressing the button to light up the LEDs. This is the Falcon 9 I made, she said, her voice soft but steady. I wanted it to be like what my dad and my father made. Someday I'll build a real rocket to go to Mars. She looked up at Elon, and he nodded encouragingly. The students began to murmur, this time not in mockery but in awe. A shy girl in the back row, Mia, raised her hand. You made that all by yourself? She asked, her voice full of curiosity. Ava nodded and Mia gave a small smile. The first one directed at Ava that day. Elon continued the talk, sharing stories about Tesla, SpaceX, and the vision of making humanity a multiplanetary species. He didn't just talk about tech, he spoke of the courage to dream big, to fail and rise again. I've been laughed at, he said. Didn't care. If you want to change the world, you have to be okay with being misunderstood. Ava knows that. Do you? When the talk ended, the students clapped, not thunderously but sincerely. Mrs. Carter remained still, her gaze avoiding Elon and Ava. Principal Brooks stepped up, patting Elon's shoulder. Thank you, that was incredible, he said. If you don't mind, I'd love for you and Ava to stay and chat more with the kids. Elon nodded, but his eyes stayed on Ava. I've got a better idea, he said. I'll start a science club right here at Fairview. Ava will help me run it. Who wants in? He looked around, and a few hesitant hands went up, including Mia's. As the class dispersed, Ava no longer hung her head. She stood beside Elon, holding her rocket model, her eyes alight with a new fire. Mrs. Carter approached, about to speak, but Elon just looked at her and said curtly, "Skepticism's good, but don't let it turn into prejudice. There's a difference between questioning and dismissing someone." Mrs. Carter nodded stiffly and walked away. Ava watched her go, not angry, just relieved. She knew today wasn't an end, but a beginning. With Elon by her side, she was ready for whatever lay ahead, not just to prove herself, but to carry on the legacy of her birth father and the dad who'd chosen her as his own. The air in Fairview Elementary buzzed with a new energy in the days following Elon Musk's visit. Whispers trailed Ava down the hallways. Not the cruel, mocking kind she'd endured before, but curious, almost reverent ones. Kids who'd once snickered at her SpaceX t-shirt now stole glances at her LED bracelet, its tiny lights blinking like a secret code only she understood. Ava felt the shift, subtle but real, like the ground beneath her feet had steadied after a storm. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't just the new black girl either. She was Ava, the girl with a dad who built rockets and a mind that dreamed beyond the treetops of this sleepy Ohio town. Elon didn't vanish after his surprise appearance. True to his word, he set up a science club at the school, though club was a modest term for what it became. He rented out the old storage shed behind the gymnasium, a dusty relic stuffed with broken desks and forgotten gym mats, and transformed it into a miniature lab. By the end of the week, it had workbenches lined with soldering kits, 3D printers humming in the corner, and a wall-mounted screen streaming live feeds from SpaceX launches. He shipped in boxes of circuit boards, wires, and sensors from his California headquarters, along with a handwritten note taped to one crate. For Ava and the Dreamers, build something impossible. The first meeting of the Fairview Science Club drew a small but eager crowd. Ava stood at the front, her homemade Falcon 9 model perched on a table beside her, its LEDs casting a soft glow across the room. Elon leaned against a workbench, arms crossed, watching with a faint smirk as kids filed in. There was Tommy, the mechanic's son, who fidgeted with a screwdriver like it was a toy. Sarah, the nurse's daughter, who clutched a notebook full of scribbled questions. And Mia, the quiet girl with messy brown curls and a faded hoodie, who'd surprised Ava by raising her hand last time. 8 kids total, not a flood, but a start. "All right," Elon said, pushing off the workbench and stepping forward. His voice carried that odd mix of casual and commanding that made people listen. "This isn't about grades or rules. This is about asking what if and then making it happen. I don't care if you've never touched a circuit board before. You're here because you're curious. That's enough." He pointed to the screen where a clip of Starship's latest test flight played on loop. Flames roaring, metal gleaming against a desert sky. "That's what I do. I build things people say can't be built." Ava's dad, her real dad, James, did the same. He helped me figure out how to make rockets fly twice. "Now it's your turn. What do you want to build?" Hands shot up, tentative at first, then bolder. Tommy asked about electric cars. Sarah wanted to know if robots could fix broken bones. Mia, her voice barely above a whisper, said, "Can we make something that talks to computers without typing?" Elon grinned, a rare flash of teeth. Yes, and absolutely. Let's start small, though. Ava, show them what you've got." Ava stepped forward, her nerves tingling but her chin high. "This is my Falcon 9, she said, pressing the button to light it up. "I made it from stuff I found at home. It's not real, but it's how I imagine rockets work. I want to build a real one someday." She paused, then added, "For my dad, both of them." The room went quiet, not out of doubt this time, but respect. Mia's eyes widened, and she scribbled something in her notebook. Elon nodded. "Good. That's your what if. Now let's make it bigger." That day, the club became more than a pastime. It became a mission. Ava found herself paired with Mia, who turned out to be a coding whiz despite her shy demeanor. While Ava loved tinkering with wires and gears, Mia could make lines of code dance. turning chaos into order. They didn't talk much at first, just worked side by side, but a quiet understanding grew between them. Mia stopped rolling her eyes at Ava's SpaceX obsession and started asking questions. Real ones, like, how do rockets stay straight? And what's it like having a dad like Elon? One afternoon, as they soldered a sensor onto a breadboard, Mia looked up, her curls falling into her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said abruptly, "for not believing you before. I don't know, it seemed too big." Ava paused, the soldering iron hovering midair. "It's okay," she said after a beat. "I get it. Most people don't believe me at first, but it's true and that's what matters." Mia nodded, then smiled, a small, genuine curve of her lips. "Your model's cool. I bet we could make something even better together." That was the moment their friendship clicked into place, like a circuit completing itself. Elon noticed it too. The next day, he pulled them aside after club. "You two work well together," he said, leaning over their cluttered workbench. "There's a competition coming up in March, the National Junior Science Challenge. Teams build something to solve a real problem. You in?" Ava's heart skipped. "What kind of problem?" she asked. "Anything," Elon said. "Climate, energy, space. Your pick. Winners get a trip to SpaceX headquarters. Thought it might light a fire under you." Mia's jaw dropped, but Ava grinned. "We're in," she said, not even glancing at Mia for confirmation. Mia hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, let's do it." Their project took shape over late-night brainstorming sessions in the shed. They settled on EcoScout, a small solar-powered robot designed to collect environmental data like air quality and water pollution. Ava handled the hardware, a lightweight frame, tiny motors, and solar panels she scavenged from old toys. Mia wrote the code, programming the bot to transmit data to a phone app in real time. Elon turned their backyard shed into a full-blown training ground, showing up every few days with new tools or a video call from Tesla engineers to troubleshoot their designs. Training with Elon wasn't easy. He didn't coddle them. "Why's this motor overheating?" he'd ask, tapping a smoking prototype with a pencil. "Figure it out." When Mia's code crashed the app, he'd say, "Failure's data, use it." But he never left them stranded. He'd sit cross-legged on the floor, sketching fixes on a napkin, or pull up SpaceX schematics to show them how real engineers solve problems. James used to say, "If it's hard, it's worth it," he told them once, his voice softening. "You're tougher than you think." Weeks turned into months, and the shed became their world. Ava and Mia grew closer through every late night and bruised knuckle. One evening, as they tested EcoScout's wheels on a makeshift ramp, Ava laughed. "I think my hands are more solder than skin now." Mia giggled, brushing sawdust off her jeans. "Mine too, but it's fun, right?" Ava nodded, realizing she hadn't felt alone since Mia joined her. Elon watched from the sidelines, his sharp eyes catching every detail. He didn't say much, but Ava could tell he was proud, not just of the robot, but of her. One night, as they packed up, he handed her a small patch embroidered with the SpaceX logo. "James wore this on his jacket," he said. "Thought you'd like it." Ava ran her fingers over the stitching, her throat tight. "Thanks, Dad," she whispered, and Elon's smirk softened into something rare, a real smile. By February, EcoScout was ready, a sleek, palm-sized bot with a solar strip glinting on its back and sensors blinking like eyes. It rolled across the shed floor, beeping as it sent data to Mia's phone. CO2 levels, temperature, humidity. "It works!" Mia squealed, high-fiving Ava so hard her palm stung. Elon clapped once, sharp and deliberate. "Good! Now make it perfect. The competition's not a game. It's a proving ground." The National Junior Science Challenge loomed on the horizon, set for mid-March in Columbus, a 3-hour drive from Fairview. Ava and Mia spent every spare moment refining their bot, tweaking the solar efficiency, debugging the code, testing it on muddy patches behind the school to mimic real-world conditions. The club shrank as other kids dropped out, overwhelmed by the pace, but Tommy and Sarah stuck around, helping with small tasks like painting the bot's casing or fetching tools. It wasn't just Ava's project anymore. It was theirs, a tiny team bound by solder and sweat. One chilly evening, as snow dusted the shed's roof, Mia sat back on her heels staring at EcoScout. "Do you think we can win?" she asked, her breath fogging in the air. Ava shrugged, tightening a screw. I don't know, but we're going to try like we can. That's what Dad, James, would have done. Mia nodded, her usual shyness replaced by a quiet resolve. Yeah, and Elon too. The night before they left for Columbus, Elon showed up unannounced, his Tesla humming silently into the driveway. He carried a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a laptop tucked under his arm. Final check, he said, dropping the bag with a thud. He ran EcoScout through a brutal test, dumping it in a bucket of water, rolling it down a gravel slope, blasting it with a hairdryer to simulate wind. It held up, battered but functional, and he nodded. Not bad. You've got grit, both of you. He sat them down on a pair of rickety stools, his expression serious. Tomorrow's not about winning a trophy, he said. It's about showing the world what you're made of. People will doubt you because you're young, because you're from Fairview, because you're different. They doubted me too. Prove them wrong, not with words, but with this. He tapped EcoScout's casing. James would have loved seeing you fight for it. Ava swallowed hard, clutching the SpaceX patch in her pocket. Mia bit her lip, then said, We won't let you down. Elon's eyes crinkled at the corners. You won't let yourselves down. That's what counts. The next morning, they piled into a borrowed minivan with Mr. Brooks at the wheel, EcoScout packed in a foam-lined box between Ava and Mia. The drive to Columbus was quiet, nerves humming beneath the surface. Ava stared out the window at the flat, snow-dusted fields, her mind racing with what-ifs. Mia fiddled with her phone, triple-checking the app's connection. Elon couldn't come. He had a Neuralink demo in San Francisco, but he'd promised to watch the live stream. Kick their asses, he'd texted Ava at dawn, followed by a rocket emoji. She smiled at that, tucking the phone away. When they arrived, the Columbus Convention Center loomed like a spaceship itself, glass and steel stretching into the gray sky. Inside, it buzzed with hundreds of kids, their projects lining rows of tables, drones, wind turbines, glowing chemical vats. Ava and Mia set up their station, EcoScout gleaming under the harsh lights. Across the aisle, a familiar face caught Ava's eye. Ethan, the smug kid from a rival school who'd mocked her at a local science fair months ago. He smirked, leaning over his team's sleek, overbuilt drone. Nice toy, he called. Hope it doesn't break before the judges get here. Ava's jaw tightened, but Mia squeezed her arm. Ignore him, she whispered. We've got this. Ava nodded, focusing on the bot. Ethan didn't matter. The challenge did. The first round began, an obstacle course testing durability and data accuracy. EcoScout rolled through mud, climbed a ramp, and beamed stats to Mia's phone without a hitch. Judges scribbled notes, nodding as they passed. Ethan's drone wobbled mid-flight, earning a frown from the panel. Ava and Mia exchanged a quick, triumphant glance. They were advancing. By late afternoon, they'd made it to the semifinals. One of 20 teams left. The shed, the late nights, the burned fingers, it was all paying off. Ava felt James's presence in every hum of EcoScout's motors, and Elon's in every line of code Mia perfected. They weren't just a team, they were a force. And tomorrow the finals would test just how far that force could carry them. The Columbus Convention Center buzzed with a frenetic energy as the National Junior Science Challenge entered its final day. The air smelled of burnt solder and ozone, a chaotic symphony of whirring motors, clicking keyboards, and the low hum of anticipation. Rows of tables stretched across the cavernous hall, now thinned to the top 10 teams, their projects gleaming under the stark fluorescent lights. Ava and Mia stood at their station, EcoScout perched between them like a tiny sentinel, its solar strip catching the glare and throwing it back in defiant shards. Ava's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted a sensor, but her jaw was set, her eyes fixed on the prize, a shimmering trophy on a pedestal across the room, flanked by banners promising a trip to SpaceX headquarters. Mia tapped away at her phone, running a last diagnostic on the app. Batteries at 98%, she murmured, her voice steady despite the faint sheen of sweat on her forehead. Data link's solid. We're good. Ava nodded, wiping her palms on her jeans. Let's make it count. Across the aisle, Ethan and his teammate, a wiry boy with a buzz cut, tinkered with their drone. A hulking thing with carbon fiber wings and a camera lens that glinted like a predator's eye. Ethan caught Ava's glance and smirked, twirling a screwdriver between his fingers. Hope your little toy's ready to lose, he called loud enough for nearby teams to turn. Wouldn't want Musk's kid crying on national TV? His teammates snickered, and a few onlookers shifted uncomfortably, but Ava didn't flinch. She remembered Elon's words. Prove them wrong, not with words, but with this. She turned back to EcoScout, her focus sharpening like a laser. The finals kicked off with a roar from the crowd. Parents, teachers, and a scattering of tech scouts in sleek blazers, all crammed into the bleachers. The announcer, a woman in a crisp suit, stepped to the microphone. "Welcome to the championship round," she boomed. "Each team will face a real-world simulation. Your projects must collect and analyze environmental data from a dynamic course. Wind, water, rough terrain, accuracy, durability, and innovation score the win. Let's begin." The course loomed at the hall's center, a sprawling maze of dirt mounds, shallow water troughs, and fans blasting gusts strong enough to ripple banners. Ava and Mia exchanged a glance, a silent pact forged in months of shed-bound grit. They'd tested EcoScout for this. Mud, slopes, even Tommy accidentally dropping it from a ladder. It was ready. They were ready. The first few teams faltered fast. A solar car spun out in the mud, its wheels grinding to a halt. A water sampling bot shorted out in the trough, sparking pitifully as its team scrambled to salvage it. Ethan's drone took flight with a smug hum, soaring over the course and beaming data to his laptop. Air quality, temperature, wind speed. The judges nodded, impressed, and Ethan shot Ava a triumphant grin. "Beat that," he mouthed. Ava ignored him, guiding EcoScout to the starting line. Mia tapped the app, and the bot rolled forward, its wheels crunching over gravel. It hit the dirt mounds first, climbing steadily as its sensors blinked, feeding stats to Mia's screen. "CO2 at 410 ppm, Mia read aloud. "Temperature steady." The crowd murmured approval as EcoScout splashed into the water trough, solar panels glistening, still powering through. A gust from the fans rocked it sideways, but Ava had reinforced the frame. Hours of late-night tweaks paid off as it righted itself and kept going. They cleared the course in 6 minutes flat, a full minute ahead of Ethan's drone. The judges scribbled furiously, and Mr. Brooks, watching from the sidelines, pumped a fist. "That's my girls," he shouted, earning a few chuckles from nearby parents. Ava and Mia high-fived, breathless but beaming. "One more round," Ava said. "We've got this." The final challenge dropped like a bomb. "Head-to-head elimination," the announcer declared. "The top two teams, EcoScout versus Skyhawk, will run the course simultaneously. Highest data accuracy and fastest time wins. 3 minutes to prep." Ava's stomach flipped. Skyhawk was Ethan's drone, and head-to-head meant no room for error. She and Mia huddled over EcoScout, checking every bolt, every wire. Ethan swaggered over, leaning against their table. "Last chance to back out," he said, voice dripping with mock pity. "Wouldn't want your robot breaking down in front of everyone." He tapped EcoScout with his screwdriver, a deliberate nudge that sent it rolling an inch. Ava grabbed it, her eyes flashing. "Touch it again, and you'll regret it," she snapped. Ethan laughed, stepping back with his hands up. "Ooh, scary. See you on the course, Musk Jr." Mia pulled Ava back. "He's baiting you," she whispered. "Let EcoScout shut him up." Ava exhaled hard, nodding. Mia was right. Anger wouldn't win this. Results would. The whistle blew and chaos erupted. Skyhawk launched into the air, its propellers slicing through the gusts as Ethan barked commands to his teammate. EcoScout rolled out, steady and low, its sensors humming. The course was tighter now, narrower paths, steeper slopes, water pooled deeper. Ava guided it with a handheld remote, keeping it on track, while Mia monitored the app, calling out adjustments. "Left 10 degrees, watch the puddle." Skyhawk swooped overhead, its shadow flickering across EcoScout. Ethan's voice cut through the noise. "Faster, man, cut them off." The drone dipped low, too low, and Ava caught a glint of intent in Ethan's smirk. Before she could react, it buzzed inches above EcoScout, the downdraft slamming the bot into a dirt wall. A wheel popped loose, spinning across the floor, and the crowd gasped. "No!" Mia cried, diving for the wheel. Ava's heart sank, but she didn't freeze. "Keep the app running," she shouted, snatching the wheel from Mia and jamming it back onto the axle. Her fingers shook, but she twisted it tight, years of tinkering kicking in. EcoScout sputtered, then rolled again, slower but alive. Ethan laughed from his station. "Told you it'd break," he yelled, his drone circling for another pass. Ava gritted her teeth. He did that on purpose. She glanced at the judges, but they hadn't seen the interference, too focused on their clipboards. No time to argue. She steered EcoScout forward, its battered frame scraping the dirt. The bot hit the water trough, and one sensor flickered out, drowned by the splash. Mia's screen blipped. "We're losing humidity data," she said, panic edging her voice. Ava thought fast. James's voice echoed in her mind, something Elon had quoted. "When it's hard, it's worth it." "Switch to backup mode," she said. "We've still got air quality and temp. It's enough." Mia tapped furiously, rerouting the code, a trick she'd mastered after a dozen crashes in the shed. EcoScout steadied, rolling past the trough as Skyhawk banked for its final data sweep. The drone was faster, cleaner, but Ava saw it wobble in the wind. Ethan had pushed it too hard. "He's overshooting," she whispered. Sure enough, Skyhawk veered off course, its camera missing the last checkpoint. EcoScout crossed the finish line with a limp, one wheel wobbling, sensors half lit. Skyhawk landed seconds later, sleek and smug. The crowd held its breath as the judges huddled, screens flashing with data streams. Ava clutched Mia's hand, her pulse pounding. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, already basking in imagined victory. The announcer returned, her voice cutting the silence. "After review, we have a winner. EcoScout, Team Fairview, takes first place with 92% data accuracy and a time of 5 minutes, 48 seconds. Skyhawk scores 87%, disqualified for missing a checkpoint. Congratulations." The hall exploded. Cheers rained down from the bleachers, Mr. Brooks whooping loudest of all. Ava and Mia threw their arms around each other, laughing through the shock. "We did it!" Mia gasped, her curls bouncing as she jumped. Ava hugged her tighter, tears prickling her eyes. Not from pain, but pride. EcoScout sat battered on the table, a warrior fresh from battle, and she felt James and Elon in every dent. Ethan's face crumpled, his screwdriver clattering to the floor. He stormed off, muttering about unfair refs, but no one cared. The judges approached, a gray-haired man in a SpaceX polo leading the pack. "Impressive resilience," he said, shaking Ava's hand. "Most teams would have quit after that hit. You've got real grit." He turned to Mia. "And that coding pivot? Brilliant. Ever thought about interning with us?" Mia blushed, stammering a maybe, while Ava grinned. The trophy came next, a sleek silver rocket, heavy in her hands as she lifted it high. Cameras flashed and the live stream chat, projected on a side screen, flooded with messages. "Go Fairview! Musk's kid is a badass!" Somewhere in San Francisco, Ava knew Elon was watching, probably smirking at his phone. They stepped onto the podium, medals clinking around their necks. Ava scanned the crowd, her gaze landing on a figure in the back, hood up, cap low, clapping with a slow, deliberate rhythm. She couldn't see his face, but she knew that stance. Elon had made it after all, slipping in unnoticed. Their eyes met, and he gave her a thumbs up, subtle but unmistakable. She raised the trophy higher, her chest swelling with something bigger than victory, legacy. The ride back to Fairview was a blur of adrenaline and exhaustion. Mr. Brooks blasted the radio, singing off-key to some old rock song, while Ava and Mia slumped in the back seat, EcoScout cradled between them. "I can't believe we won," Mia said, tracing the bot's scratch casing. "I thought we were done when that wheel came off." Ava smiled, the SpaceX patch warm in her pocket. "We didn't give up. That's why we won." She leaned her head against the window, the trophy glinting in her lap. Ethan's cheap shot had hurt, but it hadn't stopped them. Nothing could. Not doubt, not sabotage, not a broken wheel. She'd proven it to him, to Fairview, to herself. Back home, the shed felt different, smaller, quieter, but alive with their triumph. Ava set the trophy on a workbench, its silver catching the moonlight through a cracked window. Mia flopped onto a stool, grinning. "Think Elon's proud?" she asked. "He is," Ava said, certain as the stars outside. "And James, too." She didn't need to hear it from them. She felt it, in the weight of the metal, the hum of EcoScout's motors, the fire in her own heart. The summit wasn't just a win, it was a beginning.